So, folks, I saw a news story on the New York Post today that I found really interesting, specifically because it basically encapsulates the trans woman experience just in the world for like your average trans woman in a way that I think is instructive for those who don't really understand the experience and also incredibly relatable for those who do. And this story is titled Trans Woman Says NBC Universal Exec Made Shockingly Indecent Proposal, Reduced Her Hours in Bombshell New Lawsuit. What is interesting here is that this story runs the gamut. It's like everything that you've been told to expect. What you have is like, oh, uh, a trans woman who wasn't out yet gets a job at NBC Universal and is working as, an average employee. Well, she transitions. And suddenly, her coworkers are deeply, deeply, deeply weird about it. And they start, like, trying to, like, essentially like get her to convert to Christianity so that she can be shamed into going back in the closet. It's really bizarre. Her coworkers called her an abomination, tried to set up meetings with their pastors, like all this. And what's interesting here is that like the New York Post like spends one paragraph on that and then says the real trouble began in 2022. And like as if being sexually harassed and like religiously objectified isn't bad enough. Like that's a terrible living experience and work experience. Imagine you had to go to work every day and one or two of your coworkers went out of their way to call you an abomination that shouldn't exist in God's creation and like trying to destroy you specifically. Yeah, religious harassment. That's probably a more accurate phrase. Thank you. What is of course very disturbing is that after her transition, her supervisor and boss became increasingly inappropriate with her. And the New York Post writes that her supervisor, Charles Woods, allegedly would ask her about her ass and was like, is your ass real or did you have surgery to get that ass? Despite having her reaction being essentially, not responding to that kind of that kind of remark, she then was subjected to her boss talking about and questioning her genitals, like wanting to know what was in her pants. Like obviously this is totally inappropriate and disgusting. But then he started talking to other coworkers about her and talking about wanting to fuck her ass. And then last year they were on like a company outing at a golf course and they were in a golf cart together. And she says that this man touched her thighs and talked about how soft they were and then tried to proposition her for sex. Again, this is her boss, the person who keeps her employed. And I want to also mention that this man was married. And of course, she turned him down. And this then started a campaign of retaliation against her in order to deny her promotions, in order to like degrade her. She was put on menial labor jobs that were beneath the station she had for the job she had. And then multiple HR investigations basically glossed over it and said it was fine. It was fine. No, we can't find any evidence, despite the fact that there were multiple employees and coworkers who saw this all transpire. And of course, upon these HR reports, the harassment got worse. and her hours were cut from full-time to part-time, and now she's filing a lawsuit. And so what is interesting to me about this entire debacle is that this is a pattern that plays out time and time and time again for trans people, because it also had her boss, after he was rejected, talking about how, oh, actually she's a man, and what restroom does she use? Like the sexual harassment and targeting got worse as well. And so all of this is interesting because it is the exact same thing that plays out in so many trans women's DMs. It's insane. Like, the amount of conservative men who slip into trans women's DMs is crazy. I've gotten propositions from people on Instagram who have their goddamn families in their, like, profile picture. Like, this is not uncommon at all. It is also something that does play out in workspaces time and time again. It is truly gross. And the pattern follows the same basic misogynistic playbook where, people in positions of power and authority use that position to try and get sex from trans people who are often economically disadvantaged, and who also know that generally, if they turn down the proposition, they will be targeted for harassment on the basis of their transgender identity. And so it's one of those things where it's like, it's very common for the most vocal transphobes to be some of the people who are most likely to get into our DMs, and some of the people who are most likely to abuse their positions in order to try and satisfy their curiosity about, what would it be like to have sex with a trans woman? It's gross. It's truly gross. It is the same misogynistic playbook, but with the added wrinkle of an increased power disparity, because trans women have less social power and are more likely to be discriminated against by social systems and be on the receiving end of this. And so I found this story to be interesting in the aspect of it represents a lot of women's experiences.
Everyone, did you exercise today? The fascists did. Why haven't you?
It's bigoted curiosity. Well, it is bigoted curiosity, but it is one of those things where they are bigoted and they're curious, but they still refuse to see trans women as people. And the second anyone finds out about their attraction, they vociferously deny it and try to cover up their interest with bigotry. The bigotry is a defense mechanism, We're third-class citizens, right? To these people, we're not even citizens. We're not people to transphobes. They think of us as objects. Objects to abuse, objects to fuck, objects to use every which way. They do not think of us as people. If they're curious, heaven forbid they open their freaking mouth and speak like a sane adult. Yeah, heaven forbid they act like trans women are people and respect our agency, We're just meat. I mean, that is how a lot of these conservative bigots think of trans women. And it's kind of like, oh, I would never do that to you, baby. I love how you are. But the second, they're the kinds of people who behind closed doors love trans women and will masturbate to trans women and will pursue trans women for sex. But the second anyone sees them outside with a trans woman, become the most bigoted person in the room. Because they understand the power dynamic and they understand that they would in some way lose social standing among their fellow bigots. And this story was so many experiences in a nutshell that I I just found it fascinating. I found it fascinating. Like, there are so many people who clearly care about trans women so much and are interested in trans women so much that they will go out of their way repeatedly to come to my stream to like try and like sexually harass me or be bigoted towards me. And like so much of it is a front so that they can feel better about themselves. You know, it's so much of it comes from this position of like, well, what? I'm not gay. You're gay. Like it's truly childish because they've never engaged with questions about their identity. They've never directly engaged with questions about the power dynamics. They've never questioned the justification for any of that. They just move on instinct, and that instinct leads them to terribly bigoted positions. They just want attention. So fucking annoying. True. Oh, the stories I could tell you from here with married Mormons. Yeah. Is that supervisor having a shitty marriage? Who gives a fuck? Genuinely, who gives a fuck about that guy's marriage? That like, do you think that his like, seriously, if you like, do you think transphobes, like devoted transphobes who are sexually harassing coworkers, do you think that they have a good marriage at home? No, they fucking don't. They're constitutionally incapable of having a good marriage. Bigots cannot have good marriages because bigotry erodes trust. It erodes relationships. It riddles them through with weaknesses, with mistrust, with fear. At the same time, this is not just a guy who's your average run-of-the-mill bigot. He's also a guy who's sexually harassing women at work. Like that kind of guy doesn't have a good marriage, because if they had a good marriage and were were a good person capable of having a good marriage, they wouldn't be doing that. Trans marriage divorce rate is 90%. Okay. I don't give a fuck. Like, just taking that at face value. I don't care. Also, I wonder if we can think of any like reason why marriage rates might be like that when it comes to trans people. I wonder. God. What does that even mean? It's just people, like, again, what does that even mean? It means that there are deeply insecure people who hate watch this show and who pop into the chat to say things that are just like, yeah, you can't talk about marriages. Statistically, trans people get a lot of divorces. And it's like, I don't care. Irrelevant. Huh, did you know the trans suicide rate is 48%? Dad, that's terrible. Not relevant here. Except insofar as, hey, maybe trans people being subjected to rampant sexual abuse and harassment at their everyday average working job might have something to do with that. Almost like, I don't know, being a persecuted minority might result in some elevated mental health damage. Anyway, again, this is, I'm not even going to try and fact check those statistics because it's irrelevant. Why would you hate watch something besides if it was a joke? Because these people need to validate their feelings about, like, they saw a trans person once and they felt a little weird about it, and rather than ask why they felt weird about it, they decided that thing must be destroyed. That's it. It's fucking peasant brain. Like, genuinely, that's it. We need like a peasant brain emote. I think that would do us all a lot of good. We'll workshop it. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about this story. I found it fascinating. I'm going to link it here in the chat, and also in the description for those of you who watch, the not live version of this show. And folks, if you got anything out of this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this story in the comments. Let me know if you've had similar experiences. And also, folks, get involved in your local politics. You can pass laws and legislation in your local area to make your community safer for not just trans people, but all people. So get involved today, folks. And if you need help getting started with your local Dems or your local DSA, join our Discord. Reach out to Dragonfly for help with your local Dems. Reach out to GamerG for help with your local DSA. They can help you if you're trying to get involved anywhere in the United States. And we want you to get started because it is vitally important for people all over this great country to get involved so we can systematically make it better and actually improve things. What if instead of just not bad things happening, what if actively good things happened instead? Imagine what we could do in such a world. So folks, get involved today. And last but not least, check out ImagineOlivia.com, gender euphoric lingerie designed from the ground up for trans femmes, tested with cis men, cis women, non-binary folks, trans men. It is comfortable, sexy, non-tucking lingerie. And we just got a full restock, 2 new sizes, 1 new color. Go check it out, ImagineOlivia.com, link down in the doobly-doo. Let's keep on going.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.